Good evening, church, and a good Friday to you. This is a different Good Friday for me, as I'm sure it is for you. I think it's the first time in my life that I'm not at a Good Friday service, either leading it or attending. It's probably the same for many of you. The idea here is to just give you a short reading, a few thoughts for you to think about, maybe around your dinner table, maybe in the next few hours or days as we prepare for our Sunday morning celebration of the Resurrection Sunday. I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 26, starting in verse 20. It is the scene of the disciples and Jesus at the Last Supper. Starting in verse 20, when it was evening, he reclined at the table with the 12, and as they were eating, he said, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me." And they were sorrowful, and they began to say to him and to one another, "Is it I, Lord?" He answered, "He who has dipped his hand in the dish with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." Judas, who will betray him, answered, "Is it I, Rabbi?" He said to him, "You have said so." As I said, just three things for us to think about that really stand out to me as I read this. First of all, I think of Jesus speaking to the disciples after they said, "Is it I? Who is this?" And he says in verse 23, "He who has dipped his hand in the dish with me will betray me." And I think of how this highlights just the height of betrayal. That someone could come in and share a deep, passionate fellowship and a meal like the Passover, and even dip into the same bowl, and yet turn around and betray that person. The height of betrayal, to share this intimate meal and then go on to betray him. And I even wonder tonight if as you read that, you can think of people in your life that have maybe hurt you in a similar way. Not the same type of betrayal that we would see here, but maybe you have someone who was a close friend who shared close moments with you, to the point of sharing some of these deep fellowship type of meals, and yet turned around and betrayed you and hurt you. I wonder if there is a lesson in there that God's trying to teach you today to offer forgiveness to those type of people. The depth of betrayal. Secondly, what stands out is this phrasing from Jesus in verse 24, where he says, "The Son of Man goes as is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." There's maybe times where we feel down and we think it would have been better if we just were not born, or we're just not around. There may be times when we're locked down in our house with our family where we joke about wishing some people weren't born. Of course, that is a joke. Because it is a great tragedy to think of someone to have never existed. One of the activities I'm going to ask you to do as we conclude here is to go around, just whoever's at the table with you or whoever's in your household watching this, and to share with one another some of your most special times, some of your best memories that you've had with that person. I thought of that this morning as I look around the dinner table, or the breakfast table, and as usual, it was pretty chaotic. But the wonderful moments that I've shared with my wife, with my sons, and the extreme tragedy, it was really chilling just to think through what if that person had never been born? What if we never would have shared some of those deep moments together? What a terrible thing to think of. And yet, Jesus uses that imagery, I think, to even highlight something scarier. That is hell. That hell is a reality. And that it is worse than never being born at all, because it includes everlasting punishment. And then specifically, and the biggest thing I think that stands out to me, and many of you have probably seen this in this passage before and heard this, but we just talked about the reality of hell. And this passage also shows that in many cases there's a very thin line that separates those who will see glory and those that will see punishment. Because the answer of the disciples is different, right? When you look at verse 22, it says that all the disciples looked to Jesus and looked to each other and said, "Is it I, Lord?" The Greek word there is the word for Lord or servant, Lord or master. But that's not the word that Judas says, does it? Judas says in 25, as he talks to Jesus, he says, "Is it I, Rabbi?" Again, the Greek word for teacher. As a matter of fact, as we go through the entirety of Scripture, we never see a point in which Judas refers to Jesus as Lord. It reminds us of C.S. Lewis's great discussion in Mere Christianity, where he looks at Jesus and what Jesus says, and essentially says, because Jesus claimed to be God, which he did, you cannot look to Jesus as just a good teacher. Because a good teacher doesn't tell you to worship them, right? There's only three options when you come to Jesus. Because of his claims, he can either be a liar, he could be a madman, a lunatic, or he could be, as we know him to be, Lord. Liar, lunatic, or Lord. And we saw Judas here trying to make Jesus into something he couldn't be. He can't just be a good teacher. He is either your Lord or he's nothing to you. And I guess that is just the question, and the final question I want to leave you guys with, to think on, to meditate on as we move into this Easter celebration. Who is Jesus to you? Is he Rabbi? Or is he Lord? And really, the difference in eternity waits on your decision. Are you going to make him your Lord, or is he simply a teacher to you? So let me leave those with you again, and specifically ask you to just take some time to go around your table, to go around your household a little bit, and share some of those memories that you have of each other. And even to take a moment to think of the tragedy of what it would be like if you'd never been born, if the person that you're sharing memories with had never been born. Then also think about this question of teacher or Lord. Who is Jesus to you? And why is that so important? And why is now the time to think about that, especially right before we walk into this Easter, this Resurrection Sunday? I'll see you in a few days. It's going to be through a computer screen again, but I know that you'll be worshiping with us, and we're going to get through this together, church. I love you, and I can't wait to see you face to face again soon.